Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Brian if you're new around here, and in today's video I want to dive into getting you started or helping you return to a turnip. Welcome in everybody. This is going to be a big guide, and I would recommend that if you guys are looking for anything specific, use the chapters in this video below so that way you can jump to any specific section for the information that you need. The goal is if this video doesn't answer your questions, sound off in the comments. I'm here to help get you back or help you get started. So whether you're using this video to evaluate whether you should or should not play this game, or if you should or should not return, my whole hard answer is yes. There is so many good things that this game is doing, and there's so many great things that are on the way. And so this guide, while it is the 2023 guide, over the course of this year, there's going to be a lot of new additions. And I would encourage you guys to check out the guides section here on this channel if you're looking for anything specific. So this is going to be a big guide, but if you're looking for more focused individual guides, be sure to check out that section. It will help you get going and get you hopefully the answers that you need when playing New World. So first and foremost, like I said, this is one of, I think, the best MMORPGs out there. There's a lot that this game is doing right. There's a lot of things that this game could be doing better, and that's one of the things this guide will call out throughout this entire video. But I do want to say, for those of you who are thinking about playing this game, considering starting or returning, I always say this is the best advice that I can give everybody right off the start of the video, is that the end game actually begins at level 1. If you play with that mindset in the core of this experience, you're going to have a fundamentally better experience. You're going to have an enjoyable experience. If you're coming from something that's a more theme park based MMO like WoW or Final Fantasy XIV, for example, that is essentially where you are usually pushing towards a specific level cap. But if you actually look at this game like Final Fantasy XI, in which the end game starts as soon as you start this game, you, by the time hit level cap at level 60, will have a foundation and a fundamentally better experience. But I'm not going to judge you. Play however you want to play this game. But that is just the best philosophy that I find that giving people what they need. So that's what I want to say. Now, I think that it's best, especially when we start talking about like what version should you buy this game. That is essentially where we're going to start in this case. Now, there are a couple different versions. You have the base game, which its normal price is $40, but you should be able to actually find this game sometimes on sale. You can get it usually on sale at least once a quarter. And to start it off, the base game, $40. Absolutely, this is the best version in my mind to purchase. You can upgrade to the deluxe edition, which is $50. That's going to include a woodsman apparel skin, a hatchet, a mastiff house pet, rock, paper, scissors remote, and a digital art book. Now, whether you buy this game on Amazon or on Steam, it is all the same game. So just note that that is essentially what's happening. They have just recently introduced an Azoth edition for $90, which includes the Scorching Sand apparel skin, the Wicked Ways weapon set, Blunderbuss of Brimstone Sands weapon skin, the Sarcophagus housing item. Then you get the Woodsman, a hatchet and apparel skin, the Celestial Hair house pet, you get the Woodsland Mastiff house pet, the Egyptian Crest pack, the card suit pack, a Tidal Desert Vanguard, a chest pound emote, rock, paper, scissors emote, gold die ×5, silver die ×5, smoldering scarlet die ×5, and the New World digital art book is also included in this edition. So there are 3 versions of this game you can purchase. My recommendation is start with the base one. You can go always into the store and unlock various different consumables, and that's really where the strength of this game is. It's a buy once, play forever kind of game, and yes, there is a cash shop, but all of this is various different cosmetics and various different emotes and things like that. Now, as the game evolves, I'm sure we'll see more things added into this, like when we know the mounts are on the way. We don't have an ETA, but I could see that they could probably add in mount skins, and that's pretty standard for how MMOs end up faring for the most part. But on a monetary system, New World is the best and most incredibly fair to the player, to the point where I think you'll hear people actually worried that AGS isn't making enough money to sustain their investment in this game, and that's actually not the case. New World is kind of a tentpole game for AGS. It's a lot of the stuff that they are working on, as they're also building out and publishing other various different games. In fact, they actually just acquired the Tomb Raider license from Embracer Group for like $600 million. $1,000. So AGS is all in on gaming, and so when it comes to this, I would highly recommend that you give it a shot and give it a chance, because at $40 you're going to get way more fun and playtime than you might with any other standard game that you're going to be paying $70 for out there on the market today. But let's talk about system specs, because this game can be a beast. It is a beautiful game after all. The minimum specs is there once you have at least 8 gigs of RAM, DirectX 12, 50 gigs on your hard drive. You're going to have always online account and an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 670 with 2 gigs of RAM, or an AMD Radeon R9 at 280 or better. Now, the recommended comes in the case of an Core i7 2600, 16 gigs of RAM, NVIDIA GTX 970 or better, then a DirectX 12, 50 gigs, and then internet. However, I would say that if you guys are having a PC that's struggling playing this game runs great on GeForce Now. I play this game on GeForce Now all the time. It allows me a lot of flexibility. I also play this game on Steam Deck, and I will be having an updated Steam Deck build guide for you guys here hopefully soon. There's been some interesting developments, and so things keep changing within the Steam Deck world, so I've been trying to get you guys the most up-to-date guide, and that will hopefully be rolling out here on the channel very soon. But here is where I want to kind of pivot slightly into talking about 2023 in terms of the content guide and roadmap for this game itself. If we pull that up here on screen, you can see that they have only really released the spring and summer updates. So we know we're getting more expeditions. We know we're getting the raid this summer, but I know that for a fact we're getting the gear set storage system this spring, along with other MSQ improvements and more quality of life to PvP and territory control and so much more. So if you're wanting to know, gear set storage is coming, and it's coming this spring. Transmog is actually coming this summer, along with raid groups, the new raid, Cross-World, Outpost Rush, and more. As the game evolves, as they continue to solve some of their server issues, one of the biggest things that challenges the game personally is in how they have their server network architecture set up. And with Cross-World OPR coming this summer, we'll see continue more Cross-World stuff happening, which I think will ultimately take a lot of the stress off the players when they are starting to get started or starting to return. So note, lots of cool things happening in 2023. Now, let's talk about getting started essentially when it comes to builds and your weapons and so much more. The best thing is you're never going to make a mistake. If you feel like you've leveled up a specific weapon and maybe you don't like it, guess what? You can just pick another weapon. All weapons work on your character. This is a classless based mmorpg, meaning you get to pick 2 weapons, and that is essentially going to derive and define what your build is. So whatever 2 weapons you want, you can swap between them, and that is essentially becoming your offensive build. And then your gear, and this is where the gear set storage system is going to have a huge impact, will actually be more flexible. I end up really kind of leaning into more of a healer build type personally as an archetype, but I like tanking and I like doing other things, and that's going to open up the game to a lot of different things. So if you pick a weapon and you don't like it, change the weapon. However, I would recommend sticking at least one weapon and leveling it all the way to level 20. You don't have to be like me. I'm working on trying to finish up all of my weapons to level 20. Only have a handful left before they're at their level cap. And what a level 20 weapon gives you, it gives you the most perks that you can assign to your character for your different skills and abilities. Again, don't worry about what you're doing, especially as you're leveling, because you can actually respec for free. Once you hit a certain level, then you have to spend a little Azoth. But you can see here, I'm actually capped out on Azoth all the time. And that actually kind of is a point that I want to make in terms of like maybe if it's been a while since you changed. It's so easy to teleport and get around. You can have one end room, which will give you a 30-minute cooldown on return, and then you can actually purchase a house. I would highly recommend, one of the key aspects of this game is getting a house as soon as possible. That's leveling up in your territory to level 10, and then you can purchase kind of a base level house. The nice thing about that is that you can then always recall to your house and even reset your house's cooldown whenever you want. But we'll jump back into territory control here in just a little bit. But when it comes to your build, honestly, I would recommend having at least one ranged weapon and one up close weapon. And then as you level up, focusing in on gear that has a high armor rating, lots of survivability, because one of the things that's going to cost you is downtime. As you play the game, if you get beat up a lot and you have to run a lot, that can tend to steal your joy. That can kind of slow you down. So personally speaking, focusing on survivability. That's a really good survivable weapon is the sword and shield. A really good survivable weapon is the hatchet. That way you have a physical presence that if things get close that you can burn them down, and you have a ranged weapon so that you can kind of, pick them off from range and have some survivability. If you want to play this game on hard mode, start with a healer, start with a caster. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're having fun. But overall, I think as you're working your way through all the way up to level 60, and we're focused on survivability. That's just going to be one of your key aspects. The other thing I would recommend that as you're leveling your way up, always try to have at least your tool set as best as it can be. So as you tier up, make sure that you're looking at those various different tools and having that ability to craft and gather and harvest, because that's going to feed you tons and tons of money throughout the course of your leveling experience. And that's going to be one key aspect. One of the things you can see here, I have these bag of juniper berries. Over the course of this year, that's the process in obtaining these different items is going to change. At level 60, you unlock diamond gypsum, and that's going to be part of the end game progression. I actually have a dedicated guide fully about end game progression. We will talk about it, and I say end game progression, level 60 progression. Again, because end game begins at level 1, but it's going to reward you with very different items by doing things every day or so. So just note that as you kind of play the game will feed you with all kinds of different ways to make it interesting, to make it fun overall. But right now, obviously, I'm rocking a caster, so more than anything else, my armor rating isn't as great. You'll see here within your armor rating, it's got like something like light and medium, and then if you start going into kind of heavy in this regards, you'll see your equipment loadout increase. If you ever want to know what each of your equipment loadouts do, you can see listed right here. So in the light category, you get dodge stamina, you get base damage and 20% increase, outgoing healing 30% increase. Now for every 1.5 seconds after taking a melee hit, your dodge distance is actually reduced by 20% and you cannot run. Now as you increase your durability and your rating here, you have different things that change, in which case that you don't have to worry about your dodge isn't a roll anymore, but you can end up seeing that you're not going to have that big of a damage. Like if you actually shift to heavy in this case, after taking a hit, you only have to wait 0.5 seconds as opposed to 1.5 seconds. And this could change over the course of this year as well. So when it comes to your equipment load, find something that works for you. Again, I really focus on survivability when my first playthrough is going through the game itself. That makes it a lot more fun for me. And then essentially you can start worrying about all that, because leveling up once you're at level 60 of your different weapons is so much easier. And that's actually what I've been doing out here. If you guys are curious, you can always come out here to Restless Shores. You're going to see this channel view post and this ocean view post, and typically you'll find people running out here and doing different big pulls that generate thousands and thousands and thousands of weapons experience easily, very quickly. So that's just something I would recommend and highlight to you guys. This is a great place for leveling up your weapons, and you can do this when you're lower level, but especially when you're level 60, bouncing between these two little outposts gives you a lot of experience to kind of level up itself. Now in terms of builds, like there's no wrong answer. Find what works for you, find what you like to play. You can worry about the meta and the efficiency and all of that later. Guess what? The news is the meta will change. It does shift, especially whenever they introduce new weapons and balance changes. So at the time of this recording, there's no point in telling you what the quote unquote meta is, because there's a good chance that it could change tomorrow. And so just note that there's no wrong answers when you're leveling. Just have fun and go from there. Now let's talk about territory standing. This is the one thing that they are working to change, is to give you the ability to reset it. But as you level up in a region, you actually level up within that territory. That's how you unlock a house. You got to get to level 10. But whenever you open up an upgrade, it's going to give you a handful of different items. There might be an item here that says like XP up. I would not recommend that, because at level 60, XP doesn't give you anything. There's no value for it. It just sits there. I hope that they add something to the game in the future that means that XP at level 60 actually has some value. But you can see here, you get a wide range of different buffs. You unfortunately can't go back and change it. The only way to add new buffs to you is to continue to level in that zone. And personally speaking, I end up focusing in on like housing storage, if I have a house in that zone, reducing my overall cost to own that house per week, because there is a weekly quote unquote tax that you pay for your house. But it's nothing too big, especially if you're in a small home. It's actually very, very, very affordable, and I still like to reduce it because why not? But I usually end up, you can see here, been focusing on territory standing gain, which increases my overall standing as I do various different activities, which makes it faster for me to level in that zone, which, you know, it all kind of comes around in and of itself. Feel free to pick anything you want. You cannot reset it at the time of this recording, but I do have a feeling that that is going to be something that changes sometime this year, because the devs have made mention of that being a priority for people to be able to reset and then set their different points differently. But anyway, territory standing, really cool system, and you can just pick on different levels to level up and have fun with. So note that that's going to be how it goes, and you can always see what your current buffs are when you click on a specific territory, and you can see, you know, really what you got rocking and rolling. So overall, a couple of different buffs that I've picked for Everfall, and that's going to be how that kind of flows. Now, when you're doing your leveling, you get various different potions. I would highly recommend making sure that you have food on you at all times. And also what's interesting is that from a weight perspective, as you get various different bags to increase your overall total weight carrying capacity, putting things in here doesn't count against that. So if you want to go collect a bunch of water for for whatever, and you don't want it to weigh you down, this doesn't count against your carrying inventory capacity. So feel free to always use that. The reason you want this is that you got various different cooldowns on these items, and these are great ways to self-heal and self-recovery. So that way you don't need to be walking around with a life staff all the time. And then once you hit level 60 and you start entering into like the Brimstone Sands area, you will be able to unlock a new ability that gives you various different, you know, ultimate abilities. These are things that charge up over time as you're playing. Not necessarily important for leveling, but this is just a different horizontal level progression that you have. Now, in terms of your gear, you can see that certain gear, you can have various different gym slots. You can slot various things into that. I would always recommend taking kind of a deep dive guide on the gym coverage to see exactly what you're going to want to use specifically. Now, I always like to go with damage up or anything that does increase my healing. That's so you'll see on my healing gear, I usually rock various different diamonds, as you can see listed here, and that's going to give me a lot of different options for healing, and that actually works on both ways. So if I actually see here, look at my item here, rally for 15% damage and outgoing healing while at full health. So as long as I'm healed up, I actually have increased damage and I have increased healing as well. So that's where certain gems are going to be great. There's also rune gems and things like that that open up as you hit level 60, and those are going to be very valuable for you. So essentially, when it comes down to how you want to play, just make sure that you have food. This is going to give you additional passive healing. You can see various different food also could offer in various different buffs towards your stats. So there's a lot of different types of food that you can see here, like attribute food that I have that will increase. And this ends up becoming very valuable, especially as you get into the various different content at level 60, because this is just going to help give you a bigger competitive edge. Food ends up being a good thing to craft and gather. Namely, that's one of the things that I've been leveling. So I always have food on me at all times, but you can always use it to purchase from the markets. Now, if you made it already to this part of the video and you feel like this is a good video and you're getting good things out of it, hitting that like button is a great way of helping these videos out in the algorithm. It makes YouTube say, hey, this is a video that people like, and it's very good for people to check out. So if you guys feel that this video earns it, hitting that like button is a great way of helping to support it. Also, subscribe if you guys like New World content. I do the news, the guides, and so much more for this game. So hopefully you guys enjoy that as well. But speaking of markets and buying things, note that you have a very powerful market system, and there's a couple things at play. You can actually list buy orders. Once you hit a certain point in money, I would recommend making sure that you're actually listing things to purchase automatically from people so that they can do the farming for you. But I do cover gold making guides here on the channel as well, so that is something very important. When you go to sell items, you can always look at a couple things. Like this is just going to be kind of a pro tip. If you see a lot of things, a lot of buy orders, that's usually going to tell you that that item has a it's pretty hot. It's a hot commodity. So you can say place sell order, and you can see here people are willing to buy it for 35 cents, and they're really kind of selling it here for 38 cents. So there's not a huge difference. So I wouldn't stress out too much about that. If you just want the cash on hand, you can go from there. In this case, flour right now selling, someone's willing to buy it for $1. Otherwise, somebody had one listed for just a penny. If you go into the sell orders, you can see it is selling right now for $4.20, etc. So if I want to be able to kind of put up and make some money, I can go ahead and say I'm going to list this, and I'm going to list it maybe for 3 days so that I'm not paying a massive fee. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can sell this for $4.10 and get this and make a lot of profit. So I'm going to go and put that up for sale, and we'll see if that ends up placing it. And while that is up, if people are looking to purchase it, they can actually purchase it now the cheapest, because I'm currently selling it for the cheapest, but only for the next 3 days to reduce the fee. And especially because then if I get undercut, I don't want to have something out there that's not selling that, you know, isn't making me lots of money. In terms of buying from the markets, I would recommend looking into either the different categories, because you can always kind of like drill into certain things. And then you can always look at, let's say, look at the great axe itself. You can see here sorting by tier, sorting by the price. If you're looking for some insane, great axes that are probably best slot, note that you have a lot of different things. I would recommend making sure you hover over and look at the various different perks, because perks can make a huge difference in what is on the economy. But let's say you really want to focus in on two aspects, can equip and can afford. And let's say you really want to focus on strengths, and you want to focus for some reason on this filter. You can actually look to apply gems that have gems on them and apply various different filters and see if there's anything that is listed that gets returned. And in this case, nothing actually did. But be sure to look at the filter to be able to find and more easily apply your search terms, so you can jump in and get exactly what it is that you need from the markets themselves. So this is a really powerful tool. I wish and hope that we'll see more of the sell features be updated over the course of this year, but we'll keep you guys up to date on any and all of that. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about core gameplay loops that the game offers. First and foremost, the game has an MSQ, main story quest line, that will take you from place to place. Over the course of this year, they're going to continue to refine it. Right now, at the time of this recording, it goes up to level 25. And afterwards, it's going to continue up to 35 through Weaver's Fin. You can kind of think of the MSQ. If you start looking at your various different zones, you're going to be coming into Windsward or Monarch's Bluff, going into Everfall, and then over the course of this year, in the spring, they're going to take you into Brightwood and Weaver's Fin. And it looks like basically for the MSQ, they'll be working kind of on this little weaving situation throughout it. And what that does is it gives you the story. It tells you through cinematics and so much more what is happening. You can always skip it as well. But from there's a lot of other things you can do. Now, we're going to focus in on town boards. Not the most valuable, as you can see here, not a lot of things going on right now, but you can grab various different town boards. This is going to feed you territory standing, some experience, and coin. You can use these to level up. They're not the most valuable, but they still help overall with towns and upgrades. And it also kind of tells you of something that you might already have. You can now track various things in your inventory that you have. So it says that I've got 20 fish bait ready to turn in. I can go ahead and turn that in, and I can get these rewards. Now, experience doesn't do much for me, but you can see here I have now ranked up to level 49 within the territory standing, and I can pick a new buff to go for. And I'm going to go ahead and take storage, because storage for me is incredibly valuable in that regard. So that's how that functions itself. The other side kind of quest and some side story content ends up being factions. At level 17 now, you can join a faction, and I would recommend doing this because it's going to give you both PvP and PvE various different quests. Now, these are actually reset fairly often, so you could have your faction quest, your town board, working on side quest, and the MSQ to continually be feeding you experience. You get 3 bonus values every day. Every day you can log in, you can do 3. You can continue to do any more than that you want, but the first 3 are going to be your most rewarding. The reason you want to level up your faction quest, and you can see this, that once you get to level, the cap, you can actually at the end game pick up, gypsum orbs. This is going to allow you to continue to push up your power and upgrade your what's called your expertise system as you level. And just kind of highlight that if you haven't actually seen it, as I've pulled up my stuff, you can see here my expertise on everything right now. The cap is 625 at the time of this recording, but you can push up your expertise on various different items. Your overall gear score and expertise score is there. This basically says, hey, gear score can now drop at this level, and the higher it is, the better, and that's simple math in that regards. So don't sleep on your faction missions. If you're ever kind of curious or lost, you can always pull up your journal. Faction story is going to be those quests here. You can always look at your various different side stories and all the different items that you currently have in queue. I've got a couple of main story quests that I still have yet to finish, but in this regards, be sure to make sure your faction and your skill progression are very important to you as a character. One of the things that's important, I want to point out, using your leveling rewards as you level up through the game itself. This is going to show you various different things to unlock. You want to focus also on your camping tier upgrade, your survivalist quest line. Don't sleep on that, because as you level up your campsite, it's going to open up things for you to have at level 60. That's, again, the end game begins at level 1. You want to make sure that you're doing these things, crafting, gathering, all that's going to be a huge help, a huge boost to your overall experience. You can always see your leveling rewards here under your attributes pane. When it comes down to that, you'll have the ability to respec your attributes and do so much more. So again, there's no real mistake that you can make when leveling that can't be fixed within a couple button clicks. You're not going to be punished because you picked a certain weapon or a certain, certain feature, etc. But that's going to be something that is to be covered probably maybe in future videos. But when it comes to the core leveling experience, those are some of the PvE things. You also have various different dungeons, and you can see those on the open map itself. They have the various different symbol. At level 60, you can actually start going into mutations, and this is going to be something that levels up. If you go into kind of find group, you can pick on mutation rewards, and as you unlock and beat the certain level, you can actually level up the mutation for that week, and it's going to rotate. There's going to be 2 mutations up every week. But in terms of PvE, especially leveling, there's also going to be a quest that is usually out next to each and every dungeon. So even if you're just going to find group and queue for a dungeon, you can create a lobby, make a group, kind of set your role, and be able to recruit people into your run. You'll find that those actually can be quite fun, and if you take advantage of the quest that is actually outside the dungeon, which is out in every dungeon specifically, you can see here there's the one that I have picked up that is, once I finish it will get turned in. You can go back and turn it in and get additional experience. So it ends up being very valuable. So be sure to make sure you're picking up those quests if you are using the dungeons, aka expeditions, to run. Like I said, you can see them on the open map. You can always list for a group, or you can see if there's any group that are actively recruiting. The ones that are the weekly mutators are the ones with the symbol rotating around them, and you can see the various different mutations that are going to make the dungeon even more challenging to complete. Now, another thing that actually happens on the PvE side of things is basically called open world chest runs. You'll see various different chest runs that are happening perhaps in the higher level zones. There's a chest run that happens as a part of the wall. In this case, that is this great level, end game level area that you just basically have to look for your recruitment chat to see when people are recruiting for it. If you're ever curious within the chat options themselves, you can go here in your settings, and you can say if you want to mute something. If you don't want to see recruitment chat, if you don't want to see trade chat, you can turn things off and on. You can also make things alert you so that you're more aware of when things are happening. So you have a lot of control within the chat options. So if you don't like global, some people don't. Some people don't like the chat that ends up happening. You can say it's muted, and then you can see it disappear. And here's where I was talking about. Here are people recruiting to run the various different wall run. This is going to be a great way of leveling up at level 60, a great way of pushing up expertise. It's a lot of fun. You get a lot of people killing big monsters and out in the open world, and I rather enjoy that kind of content. So that's another PvE content that is happening at any given time during the day. Now, in terms of PvP content, if we go in the main menu, there are currently 2 types of PvP content. Outpost Rush is a level 60 content that happens and unlocks once you hit level 60. This is the kind of the idea of end game PvP outside of wars that are happening as a part of the territory control. At level 20, you unlock 3v3 arena. Right now, being that this is not cross-world, it works in level bands. So 20 to 30, 30 to 40, yada, 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 all the way up. But you'll find that here at the 3v3 arena, this is also something that you can put yourself into queue for. And while you're in queue, you can run around doing other different things, and it will continue searching for you to find the match of 3v3, and that's 3v3 PvP arena style. I'm gonna go ahead and leave the queue in this case. Same thing for Outpost Rush. You can put yourself in a queue and it will tell you, like, it will count down. So while you're out doing other things, crafting and gathering and so much more, you'll have access to do that as well. Now, outside of those modes, if you actually look up the thing, pull up the map, you can see various different upcoming wars and invasions. Invasions is kind of the end game PvE style. Upcoming wars is the PvP, where you're fighting over control for a specific faction, and that is something that you can engage with. But there's changes that I think are on the way that are definitely needed. It ends up kind of, the feedback is that it feels like it's hard to get into wars and invasions, so a lot of the community ends up having not done those. I myself haven't, because of the fact that they end up getting scheduled, but you can end up hopefully finding your ability to jump in and say, hey, I want to sign up for the invasion, and it's going to tell you when it is or when the war is, and so you can sign up, and then essentially things get scheduled, and that's kind of how that works. I really hope that they open that up, at least in terms of a practice mode or something like that within the modes section here in the near future, because that would end up adding a lot of value to a lot of different players. But let's go ahead and now talk about the PvP reward track, because doing open world PvP, doing your PvP faction quest, doing 3v3 arenas or Outpost Rush, those are always going to help level up your PvP track and open up new rewards. You're going to get a special currency for PvP called Azoth Salt, and essentially use that to be able to purchase various different items along the way. Once you've completed a track, it continues to level up and level up and level up. So there is a PvP reward kind of track that they have set up, and it actually is just something kind of interesting that's out there in terms of passive content, but it ends up being, I think, a lot of fun, especially because I like to flag for PvP and going craft and gather, which gives you bonuses to your gathering and efficiency there. Like, you're going to be able to harvest new and interesting items by remaining PvP flagged, as well as increasing your overall experience that you gain as well. But now I want to focus in on kind of the gathering aspect. Gathering is essential to this game. There's a lot of stuff going on, and you can find all kinds of items out in the open world. So I would not sleep on gathering whatsoever. Like, as you see items, gather them up, because there's going to always be things that you can use to sell, even if it ends up not feeling necessarily the biggest amount at the start. The game has ebbs and flows in terms of its economy, so if you don't feel like you're getting the right value from anything, I would recommend, maybe hold on to those items. As long as you have the inventory and storage, you can definitely take advantage of that as well. The nice thing about when you are doing your gathering is that you're also leveling up. One of the things that you will get is experience from gathering and refining and so much more. So after you kind of do like a rather run, you're out and about and you're picking up your items, you can always run back into town, and then that's when you kind of start the crafting side of things. So you can actually just boost yourself up, get some experience, craft some items that are able to be sold on the market, be able to help bring in some extra money, and level up your personal crafts as well, which again is all a part of kind of this loop that's going to give you lots of different options. And so you just have those things crafted. Now you can go and put those up for sale, and that ends up kind of being the crafting and gathering loop. Be sure to always kind of take a look at the different places and what you can craft. And actually, one of the cool things that you can do just to kind of help make things a little bit simpler, whenever you run up to a station, you can click on add filter, have materials, can craft with the steer, the current tier, and then that way it will show you exactly what you can actually make with everything that you've got. And so you can craft up various things, grab that experience, and level up as well. So one of the things I do want to show you, though, is that as a part of the storage game, because that's actually very important, you can trade with any area that you have. It'll show you where you have certain things stored, and so that way you can say, hey, you know what, I don't have enough storage where I'm at, let me go ahead and just drop a lot of these items off here, and you can easily just unload. The nice thing about when you're interacting with the economy, it does pull from your local storage. And while I'm not on my local storage there, you can see here your current location, so I can kind of drop various different things in, and then anything I'm trying to sell is pulling from here, as well as pulling from my base inventory. So you do have the capacity to maximize this out to the best of your abilities. So that's something that I think is very important overall. Now, when it comes down to it, hopefully you guys got a lot out of this guide. Like I said, there's going to be more follow-ups to this over the course of 2023 as we get more information rocking and rolling. And if you need anything, feel free to ask. My hope is to make this as the best series as possible for you guys, help answer any kind of questions, and get you started in the world of New World. We do have a community that's the Discord community. Check the link in the description if you want to get involved, get teamed up with people playing the game. And we do have an upcoming schedule that we once a month get together on a Saturday and we game it up. And that's a lot of fun that we do and a lot of fun that we have. And so all the information's in the description of this video. Thank you guys so much for your time. Hopefully you have a wonderful day. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. But until then, take care.